Hey YouTube, Kira Qualia here, bringing you all my Cardfight Vanguard Overdress Dragon Empire deck profile for May 2021. This is my first Overdress deck profile for the channel. Definitely looking forward to the new standard format, with the first one being the main deck I'll be using during the new format. It's a new deck that focuses on the new Overdress ability, basically turning Trickstar into a bunch of different units we have in the deck. So there's a new layout for the deck as well, including the start deck, so things will be a little different for the lineup for the deck profile, but very, very happy with the results from the cards we got from the start deck for Yu Kondo and the latest Genesis of the Five Greats booster pack as well. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So we'll start off with the start deck before anything else. For those of you who don't know, the start deck is basically 4 cards you used for your ride chain throughout the whole game. So with it, our starter is Sunrise Egg with the when rode upon, if you went second, draw a card ability. So it's just your go-to starter, and you have to have different sleeves for the start deck as well, with our grade 1 ride target being Blaze Maiden Reno. When this unit is rode upon by Blaze Maiden Reyu, you search your deck for up to 1 Trickstar and call it to rear. So it just helps to fuel the engine of the whole deck altogether. And we also, for the grade 2, run 1 Blaze Maiden Reyu. When you ride Chakrabarthi Divine Dragon Nirvana, you Soul Blast 1 to search your deck for up to 1 Verena, reveal it, put it into your hand, and shuffle your deck. So just being a grade 2 search can basically set up the Overdress with Reno searching out Trickstar, Reyu searching out Verena to Overdress into. And then lastly, for the ride deck, the final card is Chakrabarthi Divine Dragon Nirvana, which has the Overdress power. When it attacks, you count +1, and this unit and all your units with Overdress get plus 10,000 power, and a once per turn Vanguard ability. You discard a card from your hand, then choose a grade 0 from your drop zone and call it to rear. So it just helps to recycle Trickstar as well back onto the field if your opponent were to retire the unit that you were overdressed in altogether. I only run 1 of each of Reno and Reyu. I don't really want to run any copies in the main deck, because only other additional abilities they have are the plus 2,000 power when it battles on Vanguard or rear. You really only want them for the ride abilities, so very, very useful for that. We have some better options in the main deck, with the main focus being for all of the different Overdress power. And now that's it for the ride deck. Now moving on to the actual main deck to play. We're running 3 additional Chakrabarthi Divine Dragon Nirvana. This is in here also for the Persona ride. Since you can ride into Nirvana with your ride deck, you'll also want to rely on additional copies of this card for you then to have Persona ride and build up the soul for some of your other abilities, including Virena's Soul Blast, which will give you power, retire, and draw power altogether, depending on which Virena you overdress into. But 3 additional copies of this just gives you the max number to consistently Persona ride into your different grade 3 ride targets. With relying on the ride deck for the 1 copy, you'll just have to hopefully draw into the other ones to Persona ride with. For the other additional grade 3s in the deck, I ideally do want to run 4 Virena Valiente. I know it'll be a more difficult card for some people to gain access to for the deck as well. So if you wanted to substitute any cards in, I'm running 2 Sunlight Punishment. It's just a retire card, which can help for some of the other added backup grade 3s we run in the deck for one of your order units. But for Virena Valiente, it has Trickstar by overdressing over Trickstar. And also on rearguard, this unit gets plus 5,000 power for each of this unit's original overdress with this card's original dress. So with this card's power, you also have the once per turn when this unit attacks if it's an overdress state. You counterblast 1, discard a card from your hand to stand this unit. That additional pressure will definitely come in handy, giving you multiple attacks. You can ideally attack with Valiente first, and then restand it, and then use Nirvana to power up this card with the additional plus 10,000 power to give you an additional attack. Attacking more than 3 times in a turn definitely will make this card a 4 of in the deck. But once again, if you don't have copies of this card, you can just use Sunlight Punishment, because we do run a pretty high number of other grade 3s in the deck just for added support. With the last of the grade 3s being 3 Penetrate Dragon Trabosh. On rearguard, when your Vanguard attacks, if your opponent has 2 or less rearguards, put this unit into your soul, and you choose one of your Vanguards and it gets a critical until the end of that battle. That pressure with Nirvana, because we don't really rely on much for Nirvana aside from the power and setup of Trickstar, so being able to rely on Trabosh for the extra critical power means that if we get an additional critical off of the drive check, it's just that much more pressure to use against your opponent. And the fact that you put Trabosh into the soul means that you can gain additional Soul Blast usage for some of your other cards. And that's it for the grade 3s. We will now move on to the grade 2s with Trickstar taking a big number of cards and other units in the deck. You basically have lower numbers for all the grade 2s and 1s, but it's okay because we rely on the ride deck for consistency, and we're never grade stuck anymore with the new format as well. So for the grade 2s, we're running 4 Virina Arcs. It has Trickstar, and when this unit is placed on rear, if you are an Overdress, you counter +1, draw 2 cards, and this unit gets plus 5,000 power till end of turn. So the biggest thing I found with this deck is draw consistency. We can rely on Valiente for consistent stand power, but being able to use Virina Arcs, that's why we're running 4 of this card also, just to have that draw power to go into. There's no discard or anything like that. It's just a draw 2, and this unit gets plus 5,000 power, being immense pressure against your opponent with the attack. But the draw 2 can give us other consistent cards, including other Overdress units, to then use against our opponent. With the last of the grade 2s, once again, we have the ride target taken care of. So really all you want to see for your grade 2 lineup are the Overdress targets, with the last one being the original Virina. Not only is this card searchable with your Ryu for the ride over with Nirvana, you get additional search power for the retire power of Virina on rear when it attacks an Overdress state, and you get plus 10,000 power. Having that along with Nirvana is just great pressure all together, and the Soul Blast 2 with all the other cards you use in the deck for building up Soul can just be more and more retire power all together. And that is it for the grade 2s. We'll now move on to the grade 1s. I run 4 Twin Buckler Dragon. We're past the days of draw trigger Sentinels and back to grade 1s, with one of the best ones being the newish ones from the booster pack, which rely on you not having to discard any cards if you have, when this unit is placed on guard, choose one of your units. It cannot be hit until the end of the battle. If you have 2 or more cards, choose a card from your hand and discard it. So if you just have these 2 cards in your hand, you can then just place the one on guard and not have to discard the other one, meaning you can save the last Sentinel for your last defense against your opponent, not having to rely on the other hand consistency, and then hopefully having enough resources with the next draw to have a play to come back against your opponent. Because don't forget, with Persona Ride, if you do draw into another grade 3, you do get to draw a card, and then the front row gets plus 10,000 power for the turn. With the last of the grade 1s also being 4 Stealth Dragon Tencha Stead. I have 1 Reno just filling the place here, but you do want to run 4 of this card. On rear, when an attack it hits, this unit boosted hits, you counter +1, retire this unit, choose one of your vanguards, search your deck for up to 1 card with the same name as that card, reveal it and put it into your hand and shuffle your deck. So with it, you have that search power for your consistency for your Persona Ride, because the biggest thing is Nirvana, adding it to your hand and then having that play for your Persona Ride. So even early game, as long as you ride into your grade 3 and you set up your Tencha Stead, this can be the pressure needed against your opponent to attack into them with this card, and then rely on it for that search power to then Persona Ride and then get additional draw power later on as well. You're giving up this 1 unit, but it's definitely worth the trade for a stronger one that you can use next turn. And that is it for the grade 1s. We've already gone over the starter, but for the grade 0, we are running 4 Trickstar, one of the most important cards in the deck, because without it, you cannot overdress into Virina, Virina Arcs, or even your Virina Valiente. So being able to have 4 of this card, not only is it searchable with your Reno when ridden over by Ryu, but you also have just the recycle power with Nirvana, but there's still the chance that this card could end up in the damage zone. So having as many copies as you can to at least call it onto the field, and the fact that sometimes you'll want to overdress twice, so if 2 of them end up in the damage zone, just at least being able to open up 2 more means that you can have the one searched out from your Ryu, and then the other one can be in the drop zone if you heal it from the damage zone and then call back onto the field using Nirvana's skill. So very, very useful for that, and just being able to have that consistency makes Trickstar a definite 4 of in the deck. For the other triggers that we run, I also run 4 Blaze Maiden Zone, with this card just being the generic critical trigger, just having the effect written on it because of the start deck. And I'm also running 3 Conduct Spark Dragon. The decrease in critical triggers will make sense because of the over trigger spot now in the deck as well. So 7 critical is just great pressure, along with the restanding power of Valiente and Nirvana's pressure for the 10,000 power, depending on which one your opponent decides to guard and which one they allow to go through. But most of the time, I will like giving it to Valiente, because then you can just restand again and have that additional trigger power. I also run the 4 draw trigger. It feels very weird going back to normal draws without the Sentinel, but with it, just more consistency for hand power. I can rely on arcs for a good amount of draw power, but I still like to rely on some triggers as well. That's why I'm not running front triggers. We have plenty of pressure with all the units in this deck, with Nirvana and the majority of our front row being Overdress to begin with. And for the heal trigger, I'm going with the one that fits with the start deck, being Blaze, Maiden, Reyna. Just once again, there's the newest one. I think that'll fit more for the other Gunner Artillery Dragon Empire deck, which I plan to do a deck profile on also. But for this deck, I feel this one is very, very fitting. With the last trigger spot, I don't have the Dragon Empire, over trigger, but if you do have it, it can be filled in for this spot. Definitely a better one since it has the restanding power. But for those just working with what they have from the start decks, you can run the Spiritual King of Determination. Just having the 100 million power boost and the additional one with this card makes it great defense against your opponent, and then also just, if you drive check it and able to give it to your rear guard, and this time, most of the time, Valiente being able to attack with that power, restand again, and attack for another 100 million power. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed the video. It was definitely fun. I'm glad my first deck for the Overdress format was Overdress Dragon Empire. I can't wait to make a bunch of the other decks from these series as well. And until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Qualia out.